Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I would like to talk with you about comparison. I see how comparison, the habit of comparing, makes life worse. After all, we all want life to be easier and happier. Let's reflect on how comparison poisons our lives. Today, as you can see, I've come to you with this little bag. This little bag will represent the idea of comparison. When we compare ourselves to someone else, we inevitably, and often without noticing, pull that person into our own subjectivity. We draw them into a world where the standard, the ultimate reference point, is our own self, because we compare specifically with ourselves. And in this crucial comparison, we truly need to understand, am I inherently better or perhaps demonstrably worse? When we engage in discussions about comparison, it becomes absolutely essential to fully comprehend that if we compare ourselves to others and subsequently discover that we are indeed worse off, we inevitably experience profound feelings of inadequacy and a deep sense of inferiority. That is to say, in this vast world that is named after me, where I am considered the absolute standard, a truly remarkable object suddenly appears in comparison to which I am undeniably lesser. And at that moment, I feel inferior. We also compare ourselves to our ideal self when we move away from our realistic abilities, our realistic structure, and we identify ourselves with a certain ideal image. In addition, comparison gives rise to jealousy. What is this jealousy? Let's imagine that there is a mythical breast, a kind of universal breast filled with ambrosia, with milk that satisfies any hunger. And access to this breast is granted to the one who is better. And if I am worse, it's as if I am deprived of this access. And the one who is better, it's as if they are stealing my milk. It is mine. It belongs to me. Hey, don't drink it. Otherwise, there won't be enough for me and I won't be satisfied. This is mine. And the person who is better, they are enjoying the benefits that we consider to be ours. And here's another metaphor, another comparison to help us better understand this very jealousy that arises from comparison. For example, I see my colleague on YouTube. She is about my age and she is also a psychoanalyst. In her videos, she talks also about the inner world of the personality. And at that moment, I get the feeling that something is being stolen from me, as if my viewers are being taken away. As if the viewers who could have come to me, she has taken them for herself, stolen them. And I begin to perceive her as a formidable adversary, as someone who is truly consuming the rich, nourishing milk of ambrosia directly from this very breast with an almost insatiable hunger. That is, when a person lives in a monoworld, they have emotionally charged attitudes toward other people, especially those who are better. In addition to jealousy and feelings of inferiority, which we have already discussed, competition also lives here. I start to compete internally and it's as if I need to defeat this woman. What does it mean to defeat? In order for us to understand all these mechanisms that are triggered after we compare ourselves, we need to remember that we have an instinct for self-preservation, our inner beast. And this instinct for self-preservation always reacts to another person as a competitor. It's like if you were eating popcorn and your spouse came over and started grabbing handfuls of popcorn from your bowl. It's very much like asking a young child, who do you truly love more, your mom or your dad? A question that's inherently difficult to answer. So this competition, this sense of being better, is always in the field of vision of our instinct for self-preservation. Because if I'm not better, then my life feels threatened. So I'll set these blocks aside for now. So I feel a prick from my instinct for self-preservation, and this prick tells me that I need to become more alert, because right now it's not safe for me. That is, if someone is being praised in my presence, they're praising me. If someone talks about their achievements, and I either have such achievements or I don't, someone else also has achievements. And our instinct for self-preservation unconsciously gets triggered by this. It starts poking at the personality with a sharp stick and saying, hey, come on, do something. For us, this feels like a threat. And in order to calm this instinct for self-preservation, which attacks the personality with aggression, the personality, it needs to be calmed somehow. And this sense of calm can come when I start to devalue things. For example, that blogger I saw, a woman psychoanalyst, I start looking for her flaws. I start to find things that will devalue her. But the purpose of this devaluation is to calm my own inner beast, so it will stop gnawing at me. To soothe it and say, look, she isn't taking anything from us, she's not that great. And even if she has more followers or more views, those views are just bought and paid for. So all these arguments, this internal dialogue that I have with myself, narrowing my eyes and carefully searching for weaknesses, I do it in order to stop gnawing at myself inside. This is precisely how an individual typically approaches making contact when they are engaging with others. Have a habit of comparing, and the habit of comparing belongs to someone who lives within their own subjectivity. If a person lives within their own subjectivity, then the world revolves around them. They pull other people into that as well. So people like this have a habit of immediately knocking the ground out from under others. They might make a joke, like, oh, you look so much older, and I haven't even seen you for just a day. Ha 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 ha. Or they might say, what, are you sick or something? What's going on with your face? In other words, they do something to push their conversation partner into feeling bad about themselves. Or they might say, why are you wearing those beads? We're just going to the movies after all. So all of these are little jokes, but the purpose of these jokes is to lower the other person's self-esteem. And at the moment when the other person feels worse, I automatically feel better. I'm explaining this to you in such detail so that if you do this yourself, you understand what motivates you, why you do it, and if someone does this to you, so you don't take it personally. For some reason, the person feels inferior to you, and they do this in order not to feel their own inadequacy. So, feelings of inferiority, intense jealousy, and fierce competition can arise. That is, the one who is better will provoke this feeling. We often feel a deep sense of envy because, remember, that mythical idealized breast, it's almost as if they are actively taking away our inherent benefits and advantages. And a person, only someone living in their own subjectivity, in their own little world, can make such comparisons. Because if a person already discovers the outside world, they realize how different we all are, how unique this person's fate is, how impossible it is for me to repeat that fate because we have different genes, I was born into a different family, and so on. So comparison is only possible internally, within this little bag, within this subjectivity. There is no discernment, no understanding that everyone is absolutely different. Because of this, people often justify to themselves, for example, that they don't become a certain kind of specialist because there are already many such specialists. You see, as if there is only one breast and I have to fight for the milk from this breast. This feeling of inadequacy, if I can't be better, this compels a person not only to make these kinds of jokes, But sometimes, for example, if this happens in a group, if there is someone in the group who possesses certain merits, people form a coalition to put that person down, to attack their ideas, to attack their thoughts. For example, when someone generates some original ideas, there is a desire to attack and devalue those ideas. For example, imagine someone working at an advertising agency who comes to their boss with an idea. The boss sees that the idea is interesting and original, but because the boss feels a sting of his own inadequacy, he says, "This is nonsense, go rewrite it." In that moment, he asserts himself, he feeds his inner beast, he devalues the idea. And of course, the work suffers because of this. In other words, whenever another person enters our field of vision, it's as if we have to perform a mathematical calculation. Greater than, less than, or equal to. If the other person is indeed greater, perhaps even better, then you might feel a certain sense of inferiority. All of this follows. This envy, this desire to compete, the urge to find flaws. But a person can also swing toward idealization. He appoints this superior person in place of his own ideal self. So these idols that we invent are merely substitutes for that ideal, the ideal self that we have. But by creating idols, a person will unconsciously resent them inside. He will not forgive them for his own sense of inadequacy in their presence. In other words, idealization is always dangerous for exactly this reason. Because if the idol stumbles, people will gladly finish him off, taking revenge for their own sense of inadequacy. Much more pathological situations develop when, and I feel that the other person is worse. This takes the muzzle off my inner beast. I start to speak in a patronizing tone. I become arrogant. This is yet another building block that we have in this comparison. Superiority, a sense of superiority. A person can feel this sense of superiority not only because the other is worse, but also because the other is dependent right now, because I have the opportunity to assert myself. And in the moment of self-assertion, we feel only pleasure. It doesn't hurt and it doesn't itch. That is, a person, even without realizing that they have started to assert themselves at someone else's expense, that they no longer see the other person, the other has become their food, has become a stool on which, thanks to which they can experience a sense of elevation over them. Quite often, petty bureaucrats with modest salaries assert themselves in this way. It's how they make up for their own sense of humiliation. And I think you've noticed how difficult it is to allow yourself to witness another person's vulnerability. As we've discussed in previous videos, there's a tendency to want to give advice, to comfort, to explain how things should be done, and to say, well, I never had that problem. I've already dealt with it. People, as they write in the comments, say, that's already in my past. I've already worked through it. But why shout about it if it's already happened? And in this feeling that I am better, all the inner dragons begin to awaken. How do people determine whether they are better or worse than others? For example, I've noticed in some groups that people judge who is better based on the bag you bring with you. If my bag is more expensive, then I am better. Or by jewelry, or by the car someone arrives in. So these are material things, or for example, by age. If I am younger, then I am better, or if I am older, then I am wiser. In other words, the criterion a person chooses is most often illogical. That is, the person doesn't analyze. In general, the personality doesn't gather information about it, but just grabs onto something, because the animal inside needs to quickly figure out whether the one in front is better or worse. The animal can't wait or be patient. It acts on instinct, on reflex. It needs a quick reaction, a fast assessment of the situation. And these very self-assertive people, they actually feel a profound, deep-seated fear of death, a fear that truly grips them. That's why they need to assert themselves, because the inner animal tells them, this is a threat to our life. So a person who devalues others, who tries to find faults, who competes, is absolutely convinced, if you look at it only from the inside, that's what they're doing is the right thing. In this way, he is taking care of himself because he relies only on his own sensations, on his own feelings. He doesn't understand how he looks from the outside at that moment. You see, this mono world, this world of being fixated on oneself, is emotionally overheated. That is, I will also have a hard time realizing myself because I will be spending a lot of time on comparing, on overthinking, on devaluing, or even berating myself. I won't be entirely focused on the actual work itself. Instead, I'll be far too intensely focused on observing and reacting to my various competitors. And I will deny myself many things, because since I perceive things not in detail, but in general terms, any female psychoanalyst already becomes a competitor to me. And I feel the need to devalue every one of them. Or even anyone at all, including male psychoanalysts as well. So, the inability to notice what exactly she says, how she says it, all these little details are overlooked by the instinct for self-preservation. And I start cutting off my own path to fulfillment because I tell myself, look, this niche is already taken. You will be just one of them. We'll explore this and related topics in our future talks. As long as a person remains locked in this state of confinement and subjectivity, it is difficult for them to move toward fulfillment. They are constantly battling their inner demons, yet they are convinced that someone else is attacking them. Observe yourself. Notice how you look at other people. Try to catch that moment, the moment of comparison, and try to switch modes from comparing with yourself to simply observing without any self-comparison. When we use the term egocentrism, many people associate it with narcissism, that is, with a kind of self-adoration. But a person who compares themselves and feels their own inferiority, their own inadequacy, is also egocentric. That is, at the center is the self, and the whole world revolves around the self. And the person doesn't realize this. They say, well, how is that possible? How can I be egocentric if I constantly feel inadequate? But if we understand that all comparison happens only with oneself and everyone is compared to oneself, then we see why such a person is egocentric. Try to step through this door, into this little bag with these building blocks that we've looked at together today, and try to describe from the inside your own movie that begins with a comparison. Try to explore this on your own, to start your own process of thinking. Find the words to express this. Feel free to write about it in the comments. You will share your knowledge with others and also gain new insights by reading their comments. This way, we will create a collaborative effort. Yes, if you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more conversations like this. Join us. And now I will say goodbye. See you soon.